All right, Rabosai, good morning. Good morning. Again, Baruch Hashem, Shechionu v'kimonu v'gironu lazman hazeh, to be able to have started Maseches Bava Kamma yesterday. Baruch Hashem was a beautiful, magnificent start to the Masechta. What an incredibly exciting first blot of the daf. We are continuing today, Meretz Hashem, in the magnificent adventure. We thank all of our sponsors for this morning. We should to thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Cheshvan, Stephen Terry Zinn, for dedicating all the Sherman Joshua's this month in memory of Steve's father, Bunim Tzvi Ben Chaim, Leah's soul as a schus refuah shlema for her daughter Ilana Bas Esther, and for all of those wounded in Eretz Yisrael, Yonasan and Rachel Wolf, for a complete and lasting refuah shlema for her fall Yitzchak Baruch Ben Esther, Cherry and Sarah Wolaski in the schus refuah shlema for their grandson Zechariah Dov Ben Perel Shira, Azriel and Iris Miller in the schus of the holy soldiers of the IDF and the merit of our brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael. And of course, as a mazel tov for the birth of their granddaughter, mazel tov, the Karishma B'Yisrael. What's her name? Malkarina. Beautiful. Halavai. Little Malka, Meretz Hashem should be zocha to live a lifetime of Rina. In Meretz Hashem, Ameh ve'esim shanim tovos. And our Daf Yomi sponsors for today, David and Malki Kramer, in honor of the Daf Yomi share for completing Maseches Kiddushin and commencing Maseches Bava Kamma, and in the schos of Baruch Hashem, the entire share, we should all be zocheh Meretz Hashem to be able to continue to learn together, to grow together, and in Meretz Hashem to serve the Ribono Shel Olam together for many years to come. And with that, let us begin. So we have a lot to do today. Baruch Hashem, another really exciting daf. Today's daf is Gimel. You know, somebody said to me at the Kiddush yesterday that they're very excited about Bava Kamma because they feel that they have a lot of PTSD about Bava Kamma from their yeshiva days, right? That Bava Kamma doesn't elicit good memories, right? So Meretz Hashem, you know, this is going to be Daf Yomi therapy, everything rolled into one, and it's much cheaper than laying down on someone's couch. I just want to tell you. So, in Meretz Hashem, we are going to, for those who unfortunately have negative memories of Bava Kamma, it's not Bava Kamma. Don't put it, it's not Bava Kamma. People try their best, but sometimes the best just doesn't exactly work out. But in Meretz Hashem, one thing I can guarantee you is that you are going to emerge from this Masechta madly in love with Bava Kamma. Madly in love. He is going to become your best friend in the entire world, and you're going to long to see him 7.5 years later in Meretz Hashem. So let's begin. So we left off yesterday on the bottom of Beis Amud Beis 2b. Ella told Oseimaf Kiyotze Bayan. So we left off, it is 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 lines up from the bottom. So remember again, we're actually now picking up. So let's frame what we're trying to accomplish. Remember, quick chazara. Because again, hopefully you had also a couple of minutes to chazar the daf last night. Because even just chazaring just a couple of key points allows you, Baruch Hashem, to retain so much beautiful information. So remember again, the Mishnah introduced us to the concept that there are 4 primary categories of damages, right? So remember again, we were focusing on the concept of Karen, shar, right? Which is damage done by an ox. And we saw when it comes to damage done by an ox, we saw that there are 3 primary categories. There's Karen, goring, there's Shane, damage done through consumption, and Regel, damage done through activities of daily living. In the midst of all this conversation, I'm going a little bit out of order, the primary discussion was like this. If you're going to tell me that there are avos, primary categories of damage, what does that automatically tell me? That there are also what? Todos, secondary categories. Our overarching question, which we have still not yet solved, is, are the avos and todos the same or not? Are they the same or not? Remember, we have 2 models for avos and todos. Model number 1? Shabbos. Thank you. Right. Model number 1, Shabbos, right, where again we see that avos and toldos are treated the same. Model number 2, Tumah, where we see that what? Avos and toldos are not treated the same. Okay, so now the shaila, of course, is Nezikin and damages. Which model do they fit into? Is it a Shabbos model where toldos and avos are the same, or a Tumah model where avos and toldos are not the same? To complicate things a little bit more, we have the statement of Rav Papa. Rav Papa's statement is actually going to be the springboard of our conversation today. So Rav Papa said, Yesh mehen kiyotze bahen, v'yesh mehen lav kiyotze bahen. Rav Papa said, now remember, in the 4 categories of damages, sometimes avos and toldos are the same, and sometimes avos and toldos are not the same. Only problem is, Rav Papa did not explain that statement. So I'll say that's going to be where we're picking up. So let's go. So the Gemara says as follows. Ela toldos sein lav kiyotzi b'am d'amar Rav Papa ahiyah. So I'll say, so here's what's interesting. If you notice from yesterday's daf, so remember, yesterday's daf, we were really much more focused on Karen, or I should say, right, Shar Karen, right? So remember again, Karen, the Av we'll call it, the Av is actual goring, and what's the Tolda? Any intentionally damaging action. Now by Karen, it seemed to come out that Allah Lamaisa, Avos and Toldos are essentially treated the same. Okay, so that's Karen. So now when Rav Papa says that there are certain things within the categories of damages where avos are like toldos, avos are not like toldos, ela toldos, then Rav Papa here. So when Rav Papa said that there are cases of damages where the told or the avos and toldos are not the same, what was he referring to? So here we go. Ile mahani, if you want to say it's referring to Karen, that can't be why. Maishna Karen, I will say, what is Karen? Remember again, I will say, just in your mind, so you have it. I'm going to try to maybe make a chart of this. Remember, you have shar, right? The Mishnah calls the first category of damage is shar. The truth is, we really see it's not really shar. It's not really shar. Shar is descriptive of three primary categories, right? Shar is of what? Of Karen, right? Shane and Regel. Right? So Karen, Shane, and Regel, those are all called shar. Those are all called shar. So the Gemara says as follows. So when Rav Papa says that there are certain categories of avos and toldos that are not treated the same, so what is he referring to? If he's referring to Karen, that can't be. Why? Maishna Karen, the kavanasa lahazik, umamoncha, ushmirasu alecha. So let's remember again, what's the definition of Karen? How do you know if you fall into the Karen category? So it's very simple. Karen is any action where the animal has the intention to go ahead and damage. Mamoncha, the animal is owned by you. Ushmiraso alecha, and you have a responsibility to guard that animal, to prevent that animal from doing damage. I will say that's in other words, that's the 3-point definition of Karen. So if you have an act of damage that is intentional, done by an animal ultimately that belongs to you, and done by an animal whom you have responsibility to guard, that's called Karen. Haninami kavanasan lahazik umamoncha ushmirasan alecha. So I will say the toldos cases all satisfy those same criteria. Well, if the toldos cases satisfy those same criteria, then what? Then the toldos are treated just like the avos. So therefore I will say, so check one, Karen, when it comes to Karen, the Gemara says, Elo, toldo the Karen. Okay, so we'll see. You're going to see what we're going to do over here. We're going to work our way through this maze step by step. So remember, so point number one, when it comes to Karen, avos and toldos are the same. Now I will say, so again, I just want to point out to you, we are, I don't realize we don't have our Bava Kamma notebooks. Okay. In Meretz Hashem, hopefully beginning of this week. So I just want to point out, we are along this journey amassing some significantly important information, right? So number one, the number one item under Shar is Karen. What is the definition of Karen? Karen is intentional damage done by some intention to damage, done by an animal that is owned by you and whom you have the responsibility to guard. That's the definition of Karen. Now we've also established when it comes to Karen, avos and toldos are the same. Okay. So Rav Papa must be talking about Shein and Regel. Maybe by Shein and Regel, that's where we say avos and toldos are not treated the same. So let's talk a little bit about Shein and Regel. So the Gemara says, Shein v'Regel hechi ksivi. And I will say, where do we find Shein and Regel written? And I will say, I want to point out what's happening over here. The Gemara is not asking for a scriptural proof for Shein and Regel, right? You don't need a scriptural proof. Why? These things are intuitive. There are different ways an animal does damage. So whereas Karen is damage done by an animal with the intent to damage, Shein and Regel doesn't have malicious intent, right? There's no intent to damage. But it's, so when the Gemara says, what's the pasuk, hechi ksivi, we're not looking for a scriptural source, rather we're looking for a scriptural allusion. So the Gemara says as follows, Shein Regel hechi ksivi, disanyo b'shilach. So we'll say v'shilach ze regel. So the pasuk says over here, ki yaver ish sada o b'keren v'shilach es bi'iro u'bi'er b'stei acher. So v'shilach, the Gemara says, it refers to me allowing my animal to walk into someone else's field, and ultimately, again, my animal does damage. My animal does damage. How does it do damage? Just again through walking through regel. Through regel, zeh regel. V'cheinu omer, mishalche haregel, hashar v'hachamar. Pasuk also says literally again, mishalche haregel, uses that lashon ubier. So what's ubier? Ubier zeh hashen. Bier refers to shein. Ubier b'stei acher. So we'll say it's in the same pasuk. V'shilach es beiro. He will allow his animal to wander in and destroy. That refers to regel. Ubier b'stei acher, and the animal will destroy in another field, i.e. through eating. That refers to shein. V'cheinu omer kasheyivar hagalal es tumo. And I will say again, Gemara quotes the pasuk. Ultimately in Malachim, kasheyivar hagalal es tumo, which literally means as the tooth goes ahead and destroys that which it's consuming. Amar, so v'shilachu regel. So now again, I will say, now we see a pasuk where the Torah discusses both shein and regel as damages. So the Gemara says, Amar, v'shilach zuha regel. So v'shilach is regel. V'cheinu omer, mishalche regel hashar v'achamar. So time in the kas of Rachmana, mishalche haregel hashar v'achamar. Now I will say, now here's what's interesting. Understand what's happening over here. The pasuk in the Torah, right? The pasuk in the Torah talks about v'shilach es be'iro. V'shilach es be'iro. You will send your animal, or you allow your animal to go. Actually, v'shilach es be'iro means you'll send your animal. Now I will say, now watch what the Gemara is doing. The Gemara then has another pasuk that says mishalche regel. So use the same lashon of shilach. So just like mishalche regel refers to regel, right? Refers to damage that the animal is doing with its foot. So too, v'shilach es be'iro also refers to damage that an animal is doing with its foot. Regel. So the Gemara says, time in the Chasar Rachman Mishalche regel hashar v'achamar. Now I will say, the way you know how to translate v'shilach es be'iro is because of the secondary pasuk of Mishalche haregel hashar v'achamar, because you see regel used after the word v'shilach. Had it not said that, I will say, what would you have said? But my mukmasla. So what would you understand that v'shilach es be'iro is talking about? In other words, I will say, so right now I have like this synergistic relationship between psukim. V'shilach es be'iro means I'm sending my animal, right? But sending my animal, and what is the animal doing? So now second pasuk from Malachim, mishalche haregel shar v'hachamar. So you see same lashon of shilach, but the Navi used lashon of regel. Oh, so v'shilach es be'iro must be talking about damage done through regel. Without that second modifying pasuk from Malachim, what would I have thought the Shilach es be'iro is talking about? To which the Gemara says, Karen, if he thought it was talking about Karen, damage, right, intentional damage, so ksiv, we already have a pasuk for Karen. Shein, ksiv, if it's about Shein, we have a pasuk for Shein. I would have thought you needed it as follows. Why? Idi v'idi Shein. I would have thought that perhaps both psukim are talking about shein, right? Why do you two psukim about shein? Ha de mechalya karna, ha de lo mechalya karna. Maybe one pasuk is talking about shein, or we'll say when what? Shein, when it poses an issue, or shein, one who is talking about a damage of shein, where the animal totally consumes the object, versus one is talking about a case where the animal doesn't totally consume the object, and teaches that there's liability in both. Kamma will know that the pasuk is actually talking about regel. Fine. V'hashta de'ukimna regel. So I'll say we're just getting technical over here, just about how to use the psukim. V'hashta de'ukimna regel. So I'll say, so now that you're using the pasuk of v'shilach es be'iro to teach me regel, Shein de lo machalya karna minalan. Both say, from where do you know that if an animal goes ahead and damages something through shein, but doesn't totally consume the object, how do you know that halacha l'maisa there's still liability? Dumya de regel, because shein is compared to regel. Ma regel lo shna machalya karna v'lo shna lo machalya karna. Just like by regel, both say, again, it makes no difference if the animal totally destroys the object or only partially damages the object. There's still going to be liability. Af shein lo shna machalya karna v'lo shna machalya karna. So too by shein, whether the animal totally destroys the object or doesn't totally destroy the object, there's still going to be liability. Amar mar. So let's analyze a bit more. Amar mar ubir zu hashem. So remember again, bir b'stei acher. That refers to the animal damaging through shein. Remember again, what shein? Consumption. Right? So again, the classic case of shein is, I allow my animal to wander into Ruvain's field, and my ox eats a row of cucumbers. That's shein. There's no malicious intent. Right? It's an act of consumption. So ubiyar zu Hashem v'chinu omer kasher yiv'ar hagalal es tumo. Shabbos say because the pasuk uses the lashon galal is a tooth. Kasher so ubiyar yivar hagalal using the same wording. So the Gemara says time of the kasef rachmana kasher yivar hagalal tumo. Well, so just to show you what's driving all of this over here, the pasuk in Chumash Shmos, the pasuk in Mishpatim, it's not immediately clear what it's talking about, right? Remember again, the pasuk itself says, Ki yaver ish sadeh o kerem, v'shilach es bi'iro, u'bir b'stei acher. So what does that mean? V'shilach es bi'iro, I send in bi'iro. Now we know that lashon of ba'er, like beer, is destruction. So I send in my bi'iro, u'bir b'stei acher. So now we're saying, v'shilach es bi'iro, that refers to regel. Why? Because I have another pasuk that says Mishalche haregel hashar v'hachamar, and then again when it says Ubiyar b'stei acher, I have another pasuk that says Kasher yivar hagala, the tooth, right? As the tooth destroys. So again, that's a reference to shame. So the Gemara says, so halav hachi, but had we not had that second modifying pasuk, but ma'ukimna, what would you assume that ubiyar means? So the Gemara says, I karen ksiv. If we were talking about Karen, we already have a pasuk for Karen. I regel, if we're talking about regel, we also have a pasuk for regel. It's sakadai chamina, idi v'idi aregel. I might have thought that both psukim are talking about regel. Now why would one need two psukim by regel? Ha da azil mamela, ha the shalach shiluche. I would have thought Rabbi say there's two different psukim by rega. What are the two different psukim? One pasuk is talking about where halacha l'maisa, the animal goes on its own, and one pasuk is talking about where what? I send the animal. And I have two different psukim to teach you that there's liability in both cases. Kamash mala no. That ultimately, again, the pasuk is used for shein. I have a hashta du'uki ashein. So now that I'm using the pasuk of ubir to teach me shein, so regal da azlam amela minal, and how do I know that there's liability in a case where my animal goes on its own and tramples someone else's property? Dumya the shein, which Gemara says because regal is compared to shein. Ma shein loshna shilcha shluchei loshna da azlam amela. Just like shein, it doesn't make a difference if ultimately again you send it on your own, or if halacha l'maisa it, or you send it, or it goes on its own. Af regal loshna shalcha shluchei loshna azlam amela. So too by regal, it makes no difference if the animal goes on its own or if you actively direct it. I v'lichtov rachmana b'shilach v'lo bayu beer. So I will say, so why not just let the Torah write v'shilach and you don't need a beer? Why? Because v'shilach apparently the mashma regel umashma shein. Just from v'shilach you can learn out both regel and shein. So the Gemara says mashma regel d'chsev mishalche regel ashar v'chamar. Again, it has a connotation of regel because you have the same lashon of mishalche. Umashma shein d'chsev v'shein behemos ashalach bam. So you see the same lashon of shalach both by shein and regel. So just let the Torah write v'shilach es be'iro, and let me learn out both shein and regel from that same pasuk. So the Gemara says, no. Ilav kra yisera hava amina oha. Because it was, I wouldn't have thought to learn out two things from one phrase. I would have thought that it's either talking about shein or regel. So the Gemara says, O regel dezeko matzoi, because maybe it's talking about regel. You both say regel is the most common form of damage, which makes sense. Remember again, what's regel? Damage done just through what? Regular activities of daily living, right? Just through everyday stuff. That is the most common form of damage. So the Gemara says, "Irregal hezekamatzai o shein dieshana laziko." Or maybe it's about shein because shein ultimately represents any act of damage from which the animal derives benefit. So michti shkulin hein. So apparently shein and regel, I both say it's interesting. Shein and regel really seem to kind of be on equal footing. V'yavo shnei. So the Gemara says, "Michti shkulin hein v'yavu shneim dahai minay mafkis." So I both say so. Ultimately, again, if you would only have one phrase, because they both seem to be on equal footing, you'd have to learn them both out. Because which one would you exclude? So it's tzrich. Because I still, I would have thought that really it only applies to a case where what? Where you actively direct the animal to go into someone else's field. Aval ozlam lo. But perhaps again, if the animal went on its own, you wouldn't be chayiv. Kamash malo, no, you'd be chayiv in that case as well. So I both say, so what do we have? So what do we have over here? Right, so I both say, so again, I just want to point out, remember, let's just keep focused. What are we still trying to figure out, right? Like, no idea, right? What are we trying to figure out? Rav Papa said there are cases where avos and toldos, remember again, in Nezikin now, in damages, there are cases where avos and toldos are the same, cases where avos and toldos are not the same. So what do we know so far? We know so far that in Keren, which is the first under the umbrella of Shar, right? Keren, which is goring, what's the halacha? Avos and toldos are the same. Why? There's a logic, because Keren has a definition. What's the definition of Keren? Any act, right? Any act of intentional damage done by an animal that is owned by you, and you have the responsibility to watch that animal. So if that's the criteria for Keren, so avos and toldos are going to be the same, and therefore again, they're treated the same way by Keren. Okay, so now, it may be when Rav Papa said that there's a case of avos and toldos that aren't the same, what was he referring to? Shein and regel. So what did we just do over here, Abosai? What did we just do? All we just did was show how we learn out shein and regel from the pasuk in Shmos. That's all we did. I'm going to consolidate it for you very simply. The pasuk we're talking about is Shmos, Perek Chaf Beis, pasuk Dalid, and we're learning out of here it is. V'shilach es be'iro, you will send your animal to do damage. Shabosai v'shilach, that's the phrase that teaches us regel. That teaches us regel. That refers to damages ultimately done through trampling, or what we would call any act. Any what we'll call activities of daily living. Okay? Ubi'er b'stei acher, that refers to shein. Any type of damage done, ultimately again through consumption. Rabbi say that's the entire Gemara we just learned. The Gemara just bolstered that through a number of different proofs. But that's the ikar takeaway from that last sugya. Good. Now Rabbi say now it gets exciting. Now you thought it was exciting until now. Oh, just wait. Watch this. So the Gemara says, Tolda d'shein maihi. Tolda d'shein maihi. So we'll say now, okay, so now we've learned out shein and we've learned out regel. What is the told of shein? I will say, now remember again, give me the av, what's the av of shein? Give me an av, a case of an av of shein. Right? My animal goes into Reuven's field, eats the cucumbers. That's shein. There's damage, but again, unlike Keren, where ultimately there's intention to damage, right? And unlike regel, where it's quote unquote just like going along its way activity of daily living, this is with the intention to benefit. Animal wants to get hana. So now watch this. What is the tolda of shein? This is so fascinating. Mahi, listen to this, I will say. Imagine for a moment the animal rubs itself against the wall. Right? Say the animal has an itch, right? It scratches itself against the wall. Yeah, that's the right term, right? Right? It scratches itself against the wall. Now we'll say, now why is it doing that? Right? Because it wants to satisfy the itch. It wants to adjust the itch. And what happens? Either it damages the wall or it knocks down the wall. So again, was there intention to damage? No. What was the intention? For hana. Or for example, tinfa peros lahana asa, or the animal's soiled fruit for its own benefit. So this could be the same case. The animal has an itch, and what is it? It rolls around in the fruit to go ahead and scratch the itch. Right, so lamaisa again, but it ruins all of the fruit in the process. So these are cases where again there wasn't intention to damage. Whatever damages is happening, whatever damages is a result of the animal's hana. So these are so say. So again, you begin to see the distinction. The distinction between the av and tolda of shein is what? Is that the av of tolda is direct consumption, right? The tolda ultimately again is hana with secondary damage. So the Gemara says, listen to this. So my shein. So we'll say, what's unique about shein? So what's the definition of shein? Here we go. So remember again, the animal wants to get hana, right? There is intention to get hana, and therefore again, I'm both saying the destruction is also intentional. But as opposed to Keren, where the destruction is intentional for destruction's sake, here the destruction is intentional, quote unquote, but the mice is gratification. It's gratification. It's hana. So the animal is getting hana, but has intention to get hana, right? Ultimately, again, umamoncha, right? Ultimately, again, the animal is owned by you, ushmiras alach, and you have a responsibility to guard the animal. So if you notice, by the way, I will say, so components 2 and 3 of Shane are the same thing as what? Components 2 and 3 of Keren. It's an animal owned by you, and you have a responsibility to guard it. You have a responsibility to watch it. One is where it's different. Whereas Keren, the intention is to damage. By Shane, the intention is to benefit. The intention is for Anna. Now watch this. Ella told the Shane Kishain. Watch this. All right, we're working through this. So you're right. The truth is, see, here's what it is. Once you develop a definition, so whether you're an Av or a Tolda, if you fit into the definition, then what? Then you're Shane. And once you're Shane, there should be no distinctions between Avos and Toldos. Gemara says, you're right. Rather, Tolda, the Shane, Kishain. Okay, so we'll say, here we go. Keep track of this. So far, what do we have? Keren. Told of Keren is like Keren. Or I should say, told Avos and Toldos of Keren are the same. Because we have definitions. Shane, Avos and Toldos are the same. Because you have a definition. So now, let's go through the list. So remember again, what are we looking for? We're looking for the case of Avos and Toldos which are different from one another. That's really what we're looking for. Okay, so it must be when Rav Papa said that there's a case where Avos and Toldos are not the same. What is that referring to? Regel. Watch this. So what is? So I'll say. By the way, typical case of Regel. What's typical case of Regel? Give me the Av of Regel. Animal, and right, my animal is walking around and tramples on Ruvain's earthenware pots, right, or on his produce. That's the typical case of Regel. So the Gemara says, so tell me, Tolda de Regel Maihi, what is the Tolda of Regel? So here we go. Hezika begufa derechi lucha. So we'll say, the typical case of Regel, so whereas the Av of Regel will literally be a case of trampling, right? The Tolda of Regel will be, the animal's walking along, minding its own business, and what? Rubs its body against something and damages it. But remember, as opposed to the case of Shane, where the animal rubbed its body. Why did it rub its body? Right? For its own benefit. Here, there's no intention for Anah. Here the animal is just walking along its way, and again, rubbed itself along the wall and damaged the wall. Or was walking down the street and again, knocked off some utensils by by hitting it with its body. Not trampling, hitting it with his body. Or Bisara Derechilucha, or the hair, like the mane. Yeah, the mane, right? The mane of the animal, right? If you have an animal with a tail, maybe, right? So the hair of the animal, the mane of the animal, knocks something off and damages something. Again, no intention for damage, so it's not Keren. There's no intention for benefit, so it's not Shane. The animal is just doing its thing. It's just being an animal. It's just being an animal. So you see something incredible. Sometimes just by being an animal, you cause damage. Sometimes just by being an animal, right? Even if you don't have kavanah, sometimes just by behaving like an animal, you just cause damage. So the Gemara goes back to the Gemara says, or b'shlif shaleha, or if it's carrying a load. Carrying a load. Also, we're going to talk a lot about this case, right? Carrying a load, and again, just by carrying its load, it knocks something else over, damages something else. But prumbia shebepia, the bit, right? The bit that the animal has in its mouth that causes damage. Bizug shebitzavara. The animal has a bell around its neck, and what ends up happening? It moves one direction and the bell hits something else. These are just all acts of damage. Again, not intentional, therefore not Karen, not done for Anah, therefore not Shane. Regel just means an animal causing damage in its normal course of being an animal. So the Gemara says, so let's analyze this. So we'll say, what is Regel? What is the definition of Regel? Here we go. Hezeka matsui. So we'll say, Regel is any case where the animal causes damage in a normative fashion. What we call through activities of daily living. Umamoncha, done by an animal that is owned by you, ushmirasu alecha, and ultimately, again, you have a responsibility to guard the animal. So we'll say, what do you see over here? 3 criteria for regel. So again, you're beginning to see a model over here. Criteria 2 and 3 are going to be the same for all of the categories of damage, which is we're talking about an animal that is owned by you, and that you have a responsibility to watch. to watch. So therefore, the only difference by regel is what's the nature of the damage? It's done through activities of daily living. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. If that's the case, haninami, the toldos that you described also fall into that category. Haninami, hezek and matzui. Shabbos say, remember again, what was the example of the tolda? The example told is animals walking down the street, and what does it do? Its body rubs against the wall and knocks down the wall. Okay, so that's a case of a common damage done by an animal that you own and you have a responsibility to watch. So therefore, hani nami hazeken matzui mamoncha ushmirasan alecha ella tolda de regel kiregel. Wow. Okay, boss. Here we go. So we're going through the list. So you're right. It must be that by regel. Avos and toldos are the same. So we'll say, what do we have so far? Karen. Avos and toldos are the same. Shane, avos and toldos are the same. Regel, avos and toldos are the same. So remember, we're still looking for the case of Rav Papa, where avos and toldos are not the same. So the Gemara says, "V'chikam Rav Papa, atolda debar." Ooh, okay. So we'll say, so now look what's just happened over here. So we'll say, it's very exciting. So now, it turns out what we have just done is we have just completed a very important unit over here, which is we have just gone through the category of shar. We've gone through the category of shar. So what do we have? Right? Shar is essentially made up of 3 parts. What are the 3 parts? Right? Karen, Shane, Regel. Now we have definition for those 3 parts. Right? Rabbi say, right? Karen, intention to damage, animals owned by you, you have the responsibility to guard it. Shane, damage done again through benefit, through hana, you own the animal, responsibility to watch it is on you. Regel, damage is done through activities of daily living, animal is owned by you, you have responsibility to watch it. In all 3 of those cases, the halacha is that avos and toldos are treated the same. So now what is our Papa talking about? Bar. Now we'll say, remember again, bar, so remember what's just happened over here. So remember, we've just now moved to the second of the 2 categories in the Mishnah. So obviously we haven't finished shar, right? There's a lot more we have to say, but it is very exciting because now what we do have, I think we have a pretty clear, I'm feeling pretty good about this, right? We have now the halachic construct down. Okay, so obviously we don't have all the details filled in yet, but we do have the construct. So now we'll say, so now it must be that Papa was talking about bar. Now what's bar? Let's analyze. The Gemara says, so tolda de bar. Now we'll say again. Now here's what's interesting. What is the classic case of bar? What is the classic case of bar? If our classic case of bar, you dig a pit. Where are you digging the pit? Good. So this is going to be very important. You're digging the pit in Rosh Hashanah, right? I'm digging a pit in Rosh Hashanah, right? And therefore I'm causing, literally again, bar b'Rosh Hashanah. I'm causing a public obstacle. Therefore I'm responsible for that. Now bar is going to be very interesting. Why? Because remember, if I dig a pit in my own property, right? If I dig a pit in my property and Ruvain comes over and falls in, what's the halacha? What's the halacha? So we're going to see, this is an interesting topic, because again, on one hand I can see, listen, my property, you know what, this could be a shaila. Did Ruvain intentionally come out? Was he invited, uninvited? Is it trespassing, not trespassing? Do I have the ability to maintain dangerous things on my property? And could I say to people, listen, it's your problem. It's your problem if you go ahead. So again, we'll discuss all of that. But the paradigmatic case of bar is I am digging a pit in the public domain. So watch this. So the Gemara says, what is the tolda of bar? So tolda bar menu. So it's fascinating. Listen to this. So ilema av yud v'tolda tes. Fascinating. Maybe the av malacha of bar is digging a pit that is 10 tfachim deep, right? And the tolda is 9 tfachim deep. Why? So I'll say, so why? Because remember, maybe the halacha is like this, that a bar that is 10 tfachim deep is deep enough to chas shalom cause someone to die if they fall into it, versus 9 tfachim is enough for injury, but not enough for death. So the Gemara says, one second. So the Gemara says, I've told it as lo tes ksivi lo yud ksivi. Israel will say the Torah doesn't say anything about that. Right? The Torah doesn't mention anything about depth of a bar. The Torah just says ki yichre ish bar. If a person will dig a pit, doesn't make any distinction about the depth of the pit. So hala kasha. That's not necessarily a problem. Why? Because it will say the pasuk does say when it speaks about its father, it says Baal habar yishalim kesef yashiv leBaalav v'ames yihiyelo. When the Torah discusses bar, so it does discuss what? It does discuss the fact that the animal, Reuven's animal, falls into my pit and dies, which seems to indicate to us that what the type of bar that the Torah is describing is what type of bar? Is the type of bar ultimately that is capable of causing something to die. All right, so the Gemara says, "V'kimlu l'Rabbanon Yud Avdin Misa Test Nezikin Avdi Misa Lo Avdi." And Chazal said apparently a bar of 10 tefachim could cause death, 9 tefachim only causes injury. Sof, I don't understand. Still, those could both be avos. Ze av l'misa, v'ze av l'nezikin. Okay, but I can still say so fine. So a 10 tefach bar, that's an av for death, and a 9 tefach bar ultimately again is an av ultimately for injury. I'll just say something amazing. What do you see from this Gemara? Such a profound Musar Haskell. I will say, in the eyes of Chazal, at least in the eyes of Halacha, what's the distinction? What's the difference between death and injury? A tefach. I will say, how much is a tefach? Right, a couple of inches. The distinction between death and injury could just be a couple of inches. I will say, what is true in the world of the physical is also true in the world of the spiritual. And I will say that sometimes we push limits on certain things, thinking that it's not going to impact my ruchnius. I could take liberties over here, I could do certain things, I could engage in certain things, maybe it'll injure me, but ultimately, again, it won't have any lasting effects. Sometimes the distinction between injury and death, sometimes the distinction between, an episodic event versus longer lasting effects could just be a tefach. That's why in life it is so important for us to create the right gidarim. We have to create the right boundaries for ourselves. Because if you're always playing it on the line, right? If you're always between 9 and 10 tefachim, so maybe sometimes it'll just be injury and not long-lasting effects. But sometimes you push the envelope a little bit too much, and suddenly again it's a bar of 10 tefachim, and the effects of my actions could have irrevocable repercussions. Gidarim, necessary boundaries to prevent ourselves from getting to that bar of yud tefachim, incredibly important. So the Gemara says, Ella, listen to this. So I will say, so now watch this. What's the case of Tolda of bar? This is fascinating. Ella, a'avno sakino maso, shenichem b'shosarabim ve'eziko. So this is interesting. I will say, so what is the case? What is the Tolda of bar? The Tolda of bar will be the following case. The Tolda of bar is where you placed a stone, a knife, or your package in Rosh Hashanah. So we'll say, so right, you hear this? So whereas the av of bar is what? You're digging a pit. The tolda of bar is you're placing a stumbling block in the public domain. So you leave your knife in the public domain, right? You go ahead and you leave a stone in the public domain. Obviously, we'll have to further clarify the parameters of this. You go ahead and put down a package in public domain. So now people could trip over this, become injured over this. That's the tolda of bar. So the Gemara says, Hey Chidami, what's the case? So we'll say, if we're talking about a case where, let's say I place down my pack, right, my load, right? I place down my load and I mafkir it, I make it hefker, then bein l'Rav, bein l'Shmuel, hainu bar. Then everyone will agree that ultimately, again, that is bar. Now we'll say, we're going to get into this, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but we're going to get into this because remember, bar is very unique. Why is bar? We'll say bar is the most unique thing in the world. I don't know, okay, maybe that's a bit hyperbolic, right? But bar is halachically. Why am I saying? When you dig a bar in Rosh Hashanah, imagine, right? You go out to 7 Mile Lane. You dig a pit in 7 Mile Lane, right? I will say, who's responsible for damages? I am. Who owns the bar? No one. So bar is fascinating in that I don't own it, but yet I am still responsible for the damage it causes, which is really such a, because remember again, think about it, especially in contradistinction to everything we said before, right? Remember again, the whole chat by Karen, by Shane, by Regel, is damage is done by something that I own and I have a responsibility. Bar, I don't own it. I can't own it. It doesn't belong to me. It's a shus harabim. But yet, I am responsible for any damages it causes. So it's really fascinating. So I will say, so now, the told that you're going to tell me is where I place my rock, my knife, or my load in a shus harabim. So what's the case? If it's talking about a case where I was mafkir it, I made it hefker, I will say we'll get into this later on, then bein l'Rav, bein l'Shmuel, hainu bar. Everyone agrees that halacha l'maisa, that's bar. Everyone agrees that's bar. Okay. Again, Rashi points out over here that this is a machlokes later on in Chav Chesem Abezutin Rav and Shmuel about, again, halacha l'maisa, does a bar have to be hefker, not have to be hefker? But everyone agrees that if it is hefker, that is the paradigmatic case of bar. So the Gemara says, hainu bar, amadeis, ida la'afkerinu, and if it's not hefker, And if it's not hefker, so either Shmuel the Amram Kula mi Boro Lamanu Hainu Bar. So Shabbos, according to Shmuel, Shmuel will still say even if it's not hefker, it's still going to be bar, right? The Gemara says V'il Rav the Amram Kula mi Shoro Lamanu Hainu Shar. So Shabbos says it's interesting. So again, we're not going to get into this now. But the Gemara is just saying, what's the case? If you are mafkirit, everyone agrees it's bar. If you weren't mafkirit, Shmuel says it's bar, and listen to this, Rav says it's shar. It's shar. Because now something you own is causing damage to others. That's shar. So the Gemara says if that's the case, so Maishna bar. So we'll say what is unique about bar. So remember, it's all about definitions. What is the definition of bar? So we'll say a bar is something by definition that is made, that is created with the intention to damage. That's what a bar is, right? Why else are you digging a bar in Rishus Harabim, right? So the idea, the creation of it is with the intention to damage. Umamoncha, and it belongs to you. Now we're going to discuss what that means. That Lamani say it belongs to you ultimately again for nezek purposes, but we'll discuss that. Ushmiras alecha, and you have a responsibility to now guard it and prevent it from damaging other people. If that's our definition, then Abba say Haninami, then the case of the Toldos, which was the case of the knife, the package, and the stone, Haninami, it would be the same thing. Tchilas asiyas lenezek, putting it down in the public domain, the intention is to damage. Umamoncha, and it belongs to you. Ushmiras alecha, and ultimately again, you're responsible ultimately to guard it. So what do you see from here? Ella, Tolda debar kibar. Wow. Okay, so I will say, so now, even moving past Shar, it turns out that by Bar, Avos and Toldos are the same. So once again, we're back to square one. So I will say, Rav Papa, it's all about Rav Papa. Right? Rav Papa made this statement that there's a case where Avos and Toldos are not the same. So remember again, so far Karen, Avos and Toldos the same. Shane, Avos and Toldos the same. Regal, Avos and Toldos the same. Bar, Avos and Toldos the same. I will say, I just want to point out, we didn't do justice to Bar, right? Because there's a lot more to discuss over here with Bar, because you could come up with cases where a person didn't create a Bar for the purpose of damaging. Again, I will say, remember again, we're packing in a ton of stuff into this daf, and then we're going to unravel it all as we go forward. V'chi kamra papa atolda demada. Oh, okay. So Rabbi say, well, now we're kind of like at the end of the road over here, right? So the Gemara says, so what are we talking about? Papa says ultimately again that Allah Lamaisa. The Allah Lamaisa, Toldos and Avos and Toldos are the same. What is he referring to? Mava. There's only one problem with Mava, which is what? We don't know what Mava is. A small technical issue, right? In other words, we have no idea what that is. But okay, let's go with it. Let's say just on it, right? This. Let's say what does it mean? This is very important. That what does it mean to learn Torah? What it means to learn Torah. Learning Torah is not an exercise of the mind, right? Learning Torah is an exercise of the soul. So, which is why, Rabbi Nachman said, even if you learn something and you don't understand it, I was saying, see, sometimes you ever have a day of Daf Yomi, where the shir goes by and you're like, I know I was here because there's 2 empty cups of coffee in front of me, right? So I know I sat here. I have absolutely no idea what happened today, right? No, thank you, thank you, right? I give the share and I have days like that, right? No idea what's happened over here. And then the truth is, you begin to like feel like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Is this purposeful? Is it not purposeful? I begin to doubt the daf, which is like matters like Abi curses. I begin to. I'm like, what am I doing? So Rabbi Nachman says, understand. People make the mistake of thinking that Talmud Torah is an exercise of the intellect. He says it's not true. He says Talmud Torah is an exercise of the neshama. And even if a person sits down and learns something, and I don't understand one word that I have learned, the Rebbe says, your neshama is on fire. Your neshama is on fire. Because what the mind doesn't understand, the neshama dafka does. This is incredibly important. I don't think it's just a Rebbeisha thing or a Hasidish thing. I think that Chazal believed in this also. I'll tell you why. Why would Chazal give us a Mishnah with something that remains undefined until the bottom of today's daf? It's not like the Gemara didn't know the answer. all right, guys, give us a few moments of working this out. We're going to get to it, right? They knew it. So why not just put the definition back in the Mishnah? Rashi, instead of telling us, in the Gemara you'll figure it out, just tell us. Just tell us what mava is. I think it's to reinforce that point, that sometimes the beauty of Torah is not what you accomplish with your mind, but the beauty of Torah is what you accomplish with your neshama. The beauty of Talmud Torah is saying, you know what? This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm committing myself to. I'm carving out the time. I'm showing up. I understand it. I don't understand it. That's not really the ikar. The ikar is that Talmud Torah is a form of avodas Hashem. And just like when you daven, if there are words you don't understand, the tefillah is no less impactful. Talmud Torah is avodas Hashem as well. And sometimes if there are concepts I don't understand, words I don't understand, or maybe even entire sugyas I don't understand, the avodas Hashem is no less impactful. So important for us to understand. So Chazal leave ma'aveh, not understood why. Don't think this is all about your intellect. This isn't. This is just like tefillah. This is an avodah shebalev, no less than davening out of your siddur. And even if you don't understand, know that your neshama is mamish on fire. So the Gemara says as follows. The Gemara says, "V'chi kamra Papa told the mava." So my nihu. So okay, the Gemara says, by the way, what's mava? So the Gemara now quotes the machlokas. The Gemara says, "Il Shmuel damar mava zu shein." So Shmuel says mava is shein. Mava is shein. Again, we're going to get into this more. Mava is shein. How kimna told the shein kishein. All right, so we've already established that the told avos and told of shein are the same. Il Rav, and if it's Rav, damar mava ze adam. Oh, this is going to get very exciting. Rav will say Rav holds that mava is Adam. What's Adam? Damage that man does. That opposed to shar, right, which is damage done by an animal, right, or ultimately bar, damage done by an object, by a bar, by a pit, or hever, which ultimately again is going to be damage done by fire. So ultimately again, maveh is damage done by man, according to Rav. So if that's the case, it was very exciting. So my toldos isbei. So I will say, so now when it comes to a person doing damage, what would be, let's go with Mava. Let's go with Mava being the category of Adam Hamazik, a person who damages. So what would be the toldos in that case? Watch this, it's incredible. The Chitema Av Neir Toldo Yashin. Let's say maybe ultimately again, the Avos is when a person does damage while awake, and Tolda is when a person does damage while sleeping. We're going to talk about these cases. I imagine, for example, I'm sleeping. Someone goes ahead and leaves an object on my bed. I roll over on it, and I break it. So that's maybe the avos is damage I do when I'm awake, and ultimately again toldos are damage I do when I'm asleep. I will say, get ready for this next line. Vatanan, we learned that can't be. Adam muad liolam bein ar bein yashin. Wow. I will say a person is always responsible for his actions, whether he is awake or whether he is asleep. Whether he's asleep. Now, I will say that statement itself is yeah, I know, a little heavy for a Sunday morning, right? But I will say overwhelming. I will say, and I'll just tell you, just like in the Musar Haskell of that, there's an incredible yesod. So sometimes in life, people walk through life sleeping. Right? They're biologically awake, but they are spiritually sleeping. So I will say, just understand, at the end of the day, after 120, you're responsible for the life you led. You're responsible for what you did do, what you didn't do. In this world, we have all of our excuses worked out, right? I would have done this, I should have done this, but again, my mother didn't love me enough. My father never played catch with me. My teacher didn't do this. My Rebbe didn't do this. My spouse isn't, warm enough. Whatever. All because of my career, I didn't make enough money. I've got it all worked out alphabetically, chronologically, severity, worst. I've got it all worked out as to why I am not self-actualizing. So we'll say, what happens after 120? What happens after 120? So Baruch Hu says, listen, I love you, but let's just learn a little bit of Torah together. And when does he open up? He opens up Baba Kamma, Daf Gimel Amud Beis. I said, I just want to learn one line together. Vatnan, Adam Muad Liolam, Bein Ar, Bein Yashin. Whatever. You can have all the excuses you want, and that's it. I will say, that's it. You can have all the excuses you want. The kids are too big. The kids are too little. They're too needy. They're not needy enough. They're this, all the. Hey, we've got excuses for every single stage in life. Whatever it is, just understand, you are responsible for you. You are responsible for you. Which means if you accomplish and you self-actualize, give yourself an incredible shkoyach. And if you don't, that's on you. Other people can play a contributing role. Other people definitely impact who I become and what I don't become. But at the end of the day, as we often say, the buck of my life stops with me. And I alone am responsible for the person I become or I don't become. Adam muad li'olam. So we'll say, back to this. So the Gemara says, oh, we really got to focus on the daf now. All right, so listen to this. So much here. So now watch this. So the Gemara says like this. So therefore, so what's the avos and toldos? If you want to say the av is damage I do while I'm awake, and the tolda is damage I do while I'm asleep, that can't be, because damage, adam or the olam, a person is always responsible for his actions no matter what. Rabbi say, listen to this. Ella akicho v'neo. So listen to this. Maybe Rabbi say, maybe the av is where I do damage, with my hands. I go over, I punch someone, right? I go over, I slash someone's tires, right? So the Maisa, and maybe the tolda is where I cause damage with my phlegm and with my saliva. All right, so the Gemara says, hey Chidami, what exactly is that case? So the Gemara says, Iba hadi de ka'azli kamazi. So both say, if, let's say, again, I did damage to someone, like I spit in someone's face, right? And as a result of spitting in someone's face, they slipped and fell, right? So then that's my koach, right? That's no different than me punching someone in the face, right? That's my koach. So in other words, ibasar denayich. Now, both say, if we're talking about a case where, let's say, I spit on the floor, and then 5 minutes later, Reuven walked by, and what happened? He slipped, and both say, then what is that? That's not adam. What is that? Bein l'Rabbi Shmuel Hainu bar. That's bar. Interesting, right? So the Gemara says, so what's the told? The Ella told the mave kemave. Okay, we'll say. So rather, I must see that what? Again, remember, this is going, now we don't know what mave is yet, right? We're going to get to that later. But again, if you go with the idea that mave is adam amazik, then you'd have to say avos and toldos are the same. So par of papa. So once again, the kikamra papa, I told the deish. Okay, now say now we are really at the end of the road over here, right? Remember again, we are now say there are arba avos nezikin. We've essentially went through 3 of them, right? So shar, all the avos are like the toldos. All the avos like the toldos. Bar, all the avos like the toldos. Mave, if you go with the idea that mave is adam, is a person who's damaging, avos and toldos are the same. So we'll say now we are literally at the end of the road. Hever. Hever is eish, is damage done by fire. So watch this. So the Chikon Papa told the eish my nihu. So we'll say, what is the tolda of eish? What is now again? We'll say, what's the classic case of eish? What will be the av of eish? Classic case of eish would actually be where am I lighting a fire? In my property, I fail to guard the fire, and the fire goes into Reuven's property and causes damage. That would be the paradigmatic av of eish. So watch this. So what will be the tolda? So told eish ma'nihu ilema avno sakino umaso shenichan barosh gago v'naflo beruach mitzuya veheziko. Oh, listen to this, Rabosai. So remember, eish also by definition requires ruach. Right? Remember again, ish by itself doesn't damage. Right? You light a fire. How does fire go from my property to Reuven's property? Wind. So I will say, so maybe the tolda is like this. Watch this. I place a knife or a rock or a package on the top of my roof, and a ruach mitzuyah, regular wind comes along, blows it off, falls onto Reuven, damages Reuven. Maybe that's the tolda. Maybe that's the tolda of eish. So in other words, I've taken something which has the ability to damage. I place it in a situation where a ruach mitzuyah, just a common wind, could blow it off and damage someone else or something else. Maybe that's the tolda. So the Gemara says, "Hey Chidami, what's the case?" Iba hadida azlu kamaski. I'm saying Ibahadi da azlu kamaski. So what says? Take a look at Rashi. Ibahadi da azlik maski. Shinafal ala shiraim betinfum also kamashki v'nemasu. So what say? If halacha lamaisa, the item fell off and damaged something. Hainu eish. Then okay, that enachinami, that's going to be eish. Umayshna eish the koach achar mu'urav bahen. So what say? What's the definition of eish? Definition of eish is you created something that has the ability to damage. Then another force intervenes and moves that object from a safe space to hurt someone else. Umamoncha, it's your property. Ushmirasu alecha, and ultimately, again, you are responsible to guard it. Well, if that's the definition, I will say then what? Haninami. So I will say then it's the same thing as the case of the rock or the knife on top of the roof. Haninami. Again, those are my objects placed in an originally safe space. Koach acher muraba, and another force acts upon them. Mamoncha, they're owned by me. Ushmirasu alecha, and ultimately, again, I'm responsible to guard it. So in other words, so again, you see that by Eish, so Rabbi say that's the definition of Eish. That's the definition of Eish. Again, I put something that is mine in a potentially safe place. Another force intervened, causing it to damage. The object is owned by me, and I have a responsibility to guard it. Well, if that's the case, Elo told it to Eish Keish. All right, so we'll say, so now again, once again, so we'll say, so it turns out now all four categories in the Mishnah, avos and toldos are the same. Which means that we'll say, it sounds like by Nezikin is going to resemble the Shabbos model. Come bringing a full circle, now we'll say, but again, but here's the problem: we can't go with that because Rav Papa did say that there is a case of avos and nezikin that are not avos and toldos are not the same. So we'll say now watch this. Kamma Rav Papa, I told the regel. Rav Papa was the told of regel. Regel ho kim told of geregel. That's not true. We already said that the told of regel is like regel. So Gemara says no. Bechatzi nezek tzroros. Both sides finishes up quickly. What is this talking about? I will say we're going to get. We're not going to delve into this right now. But I will say there's a concept of tzroros. What's tzroros? An animal is walking. And I will say classic case of regel is what? Animal is walking, stomps on something, crushes it, destroys it. Tzroros is going to be the case where the animal kicks up pebbles, the pebbles fly, and the pebbles damage. So I will say what we are going to see is that there is a halacha lemoshe misinai, a Sinaitic law that says for tzroros, for pebbles kicked up, you only pay chatzi nezek. You only pay half damages. The Hilchas Gemiri ultimately is halacha lemoshe misinai. So I will say, now watch this. This is incredible. So this is fascinating. So when Rav Papa says that avos and toldos are not the same, what was he referring to? He was referring to the din of tzroros. So tzroros is under the umbrella of regel. That when it comes to regel, normally you pay full damages, but by tzroros you only pay half damages. See, he's calling tzroros a tolda of regel. And that's going to be a case where the av and the tolda are different. Because the av, you pay full damages, the tolda, you pay half damages. The Gemara says, I don't understand. V'amai kari le tolda de regel, right? Ultimately, again, why do you go ahead and call tzroros a tolda of regel? To which the Gemara says, l'shalim min ha'aliyah. Ultimately, again, I will say because we're going to see that halacha l'maisa, when it comes to tzroros, ultimately, again, you have to pay chatzi nezek, even if the half damages you have to pay is worth more than the damaging animal. Again, we're going to get into the technicalities of this as well, as to whether or not damages could be capped at the value of the damaging animal. When it comes to tzroros, we're going to see you pay half damages, even if half damages ultimately is more than the value of the actual damaging animal. So Gemara says, V'hami bai Rava, but Rava asked this question, let's finish up to two dots. Bai Rava, chatzi nezek tzroros, migufa mishalim, mina aliyah mishalim. When we pay chatzi nezek of tzroros, half damages for tzroros, is that half damages capped at the value of the damaging animal? Or no, you pay the entire value of the damages, even if it exceeds the value of the damaging animal. So the Rava mibai, the Rapa pshitale, according to Rava, this was a question. According to Rapa, ultimately it was pashat. The Rava dimi baile amai karle toldo de regel. But according to Rava, who has this question, why does he call tzroros the toldo of regel? The potra birshas ram, to tell you that halacha l'maisa, you are potter for tzroros in rishas harab. So I will say, with that 30 seconds we have left just to close, I will say, so finally we have resolution. So I will say, what do we have? Today's entire daf was devoted to what? Answering one simple question, which is, Rav Papa, you tell me that avos and toldos are not the same. So what did we try to do? We went through every single av and tolda possibly imaginable, and I will say, it turns out that's what? Under shar, when we have keren, shein, and regel, avos and toldos are treated the same. Bar, avos and toldos are treated the same. Maveh. Now remember again, what's maveh? Machlokes. But if you go with maveh being adam, ultimately avos and toldos treated the same. Hever, eish, avos and toldos treated the same. So Rav Papa, what are you talking about? It turns out I will say that Rav Papa wasn't making a categorical statement. He was making a very specific statement. His specific statement, Rabbi say, was about regel, specifically about tzroros. That whereas typical regels where the animal damages by again stomping on something, tzroros is where it kicks up the pebbles and ends up damaging. In that case, Rabbi say, tzroros, you only pay chatzi nezek, half damages. So as opposed to a regular case case of regel where you pay full damages. In the case of tzroros, you only pay half damages, and that's what Rav Papa meant when he said that there's a case where avos and toldos are not the same. So I will say again, and full circle, it turns out that although we started yesterday's daf seeing that there are two different models of avos and toldos. Shabbos, where avos and toldos are the same. Tumah, where avos and toldos are different. When it comes to nezikah, when it comes to damages, they fall under the Shabbos umbrella. Avos and toldos are treated the same. Rabosai, shkoyach. What a daf. What a daf. Tomorrow, in Mirat Hashem, we continue with Mave. With Mave, going back to Mave, what does it actually mean?
Why does a man if it's owned by you?
What are you referring to? Because if it's not owned by me, then what's my liability?
I'm renting it, I'm borrowing it.
Oh, we'll see that. We're going to talk about that.